It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
There's another bill on there. That's actually the top of the list, House Bill 1321, which is a homestead property tax credit increase. So that's not a tax increase. It's a tax credit increase. So it's think of it like a tax cut. It's by State Representative Lanny Fite, a Republican from Benton. And he joins us now on the phone. State Representative Lanny Fite, thank you so much for coming on, sir.
Yes, thank you for inviting me.
Yes, sir. So why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about, how this idea came to you and why you wanted to do it.
Okay. House Bill 1321, what it does, everyone who owns their house gets a property tax credit. Right now, that tax credit is $350 that comes straight off your taxes. And I proposed to increase it to $375. And we had a fund balance of $104 million, which I believe was created from the Amazon tax that went on here last year. And also, we've got good growth in our state right now. So that was what caused that fund balance of $104 million. And it would only cost $12.5 million to increase it from $350 to $375. And then I wanted to put that balance in an interim study and see how we could turn it back to the people, or maybe cut the tax itself. A half-cent sales tax funds this property tax relief, and that was the purpose of my bill right there.
Wow! So you're saying we got this fund with like $110 million in it, and you're saying, hey, you know what? If we raise that tax credit $25, for everybody out there that's owning a home, then that's only cost $12 million out of that 110.
Right. And
wow.
And we need to see over the next 2 years while the interim study's going. We would determine if that number is not an outlier, and which I don't think it is, and see how much it increases. And then that would tell us how much we could increase the property tax relief, or say we could cut the sales tax that funds that too also,
Wow.
That's one of the things I would like to study in the interim study.
Yeah, so this is kind of like a wait and see. It's kind of a gradual approach. A lot of people might say, hey, now I get a credit of $25 extra. That's not very much. But, with the way things are going right now, Lanny, I kind of think anything that's good for the taxpayer, any amount of money that's going back into the pockets of the taxpayer is something to celebrate.
Yes. Back in 1979, what had happened, a lot of the counties, nearly all the counties had quit assessing, and Amendment 79 came along, and everybody was forced into going back to reassessing the properties like they should. And so to give relief to the people, they passed Amendment 79, which guarantees a $300 tax credit. But as this fund grows and this money, the people are paying this money, and it's the people's money, and it should be turned back to them if there's surplus in that. And that's my feelings.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, just on if you just look at what the bill does point by point, the reason I'm so interested in it, State Representative Fite, is because it improves economic freedom, because it's just allowing us to keep more of our money if you use the tax credit each year. Matter of fact, I got a funny story on this. I guess a couple of years ago, we moved, and I found out that somehow I didn't have the homestead property tax credit filed or something. And I figured that out, I guess, a couple of weeks ago, because the mortgage company was like, "Hey, your taxes just went up like $400 or something." And anyway, so it really does help. This tax credit helps a whole lot, especially if your mortgage is doing the property tax side of things. So,
well, a lot of people live paycheck to paycheck, and property taxes come due in October, and it's a large amount usually if you own your property, and so this is very helpful.
Yeah.
Most taxes you kind of pay as you go, but the property tax is where you pay it all at once.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. And I know that the sponsor on the Senate side that's running this is State Representative Blake Johnson. He's also a Republican from Corning. And just want to make sure I mention that. So where is the bill right now, HB 1321? Where is it right now in the process?
It got killed yesterday in the Senate, in the committee. They failed it.
Okay, well, so tell us about that. Tell us why. What was the debate on that?
Well, there was no debate on it. I explained it, and I introduced it a couple weeks ago, and they wanted an amendment in it. I had in the original bill a formula and how we would turn it back to the people, and I wanted to study that formula in an interim study for 2 years. And some of them didn't like it, so I took that out and just said we would do an interim study of the fund balance. I went and explained it again. It's a very simple bill, just increases from 350 to 375, and do an interim study on the fund balance. And, it failed.
Which committee? Which committee was it in?
And this was a Revenue and Tax in the Senate.
Huh. Okay. That's interesting.
Now there's another bill coming from the Senate Bill 447, and it gives the 375 also, but it also takes money out of this fund for voting machines, and then it turns the balance into back to general revenue.
Wait a second. So you're telling me that it sounds to me like your bill was killed because it didn't go far enough. Sounds to me that the other bill, they want to give the $25 back to the people, but then you're telling me that they want the $110 million to go into general revenue?
Well, they want $8 million to go in for voting machines, and then the other go into the general revenue. Yes.
So they want to hang on. Okay.
It's just the opposite of what I wanted my bill to do.
Okay, so you're telling me we're talking about State Representative Lanny Fite here. I want to understand this. You're telling me, tell us about this fund. What was this fund originally set up to do? It was set up for property tax relief, and it was set up originally at $300, and it has a history of people dipping into this fund. In the first 4 years it was created, over $100 million was taken out and put in the general revenue. That was one reason I wrote my bill, was to do the interim study to stop things like that from happening. It sounds to me
I feel like it should all go back to the people.
I completely agree with you. That seems to be what it's there for. If it's for property tax relief, that's what the fund's there for. That's what people are paying the tax for right now. And it sounds to me like people are wanting to raid that fund to spend the money on something else other than giving it back to the people. What do you say to that?
Of course, I oppose it. I will vote against that bill if it gets out of the Senate and comes to the other end. I will fight hard against it, to be honest with you.
Oh my goodness! Wow, this is to me. This is news. State Representative Lanny Fite. I didn't realize this. This is pretty frustrating because because your bill is very simple, and it actually is starting the path to maybe to give the people more tax relief, and they don't want it. They want the money now. So are you going to try to run your bill again? I mean, I'm assuming it already had made it out of the House, correct?
Yes, it made it out of the House. I think it was everybody voted for it except one who voted present, and it flew out of our Revenue and Tax Committee unanimously. And, everybody on the House end thinks it's a great bill. And, as I say, until it got to the city Revenue and Tax, there's where it failed in Revenue and Tax.
Who's running the competing bill that would raid the Property Tax Relief Trust Fund?
Senator Hendren is running it.
Ah, okay. All right. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, State Representative Lanny Fite, I commend you for having a good idea. And I think the House is right on in passing this to just let's keep the money there so we can give even more relief to the people. It seems to me like there appears to be some people think there's a need for that money to go into general revenue right now. I mean, obviously we need voting machines. I mean, that's something that a lot of people have said, but then the rest of the fund just gets drained. I mean, are they really talking about draining it to zero?
Well, they can't drain it to zero because you got to have a little bit of cushion because it pays out during the year, different times during the year. So it won't go down to zero. No.
Okay.
No. But again, it was taxed to the people and sold to the people as property tax relief. And it goes into the property tax relief fund, the money does. And I feel very strongly that it should go back to the people one way or the other, either reducing their taxes or reducing the sales tax that creates this fund.
Yeah, which would be awesome. I mean, to reduce the sales tax because we're got a very high sales tax in the state. It kind of reminds me of those times when the feds, were accused of raiding the Social Security Trust Fund. That money sitting there, and then of course it's very tempting to try to use it for something else. State Representative Lanny Fite, I appreciate your work. You've got a great idea and a great bill, and it's I feel like a very healthy mentality to try to give that money back to the people or eliminate the tax altogether that's funding the program. And best of luck to you, sir. I hope you run your bill again. Have you thought about trying to run it again?
We're talking about that right now.
Okay.
What action take. Yeah.
Well, I want to help you in any way I can to get the word out. I tell people to call their legislators. This is a simple bill, and it seems like a lot of times the simple bills are the ones that have the hardest time getting through. But we really appreciate you coming on the program, sir.
All right. Thanks, Paul.
All righty. State Representative Lanny Fite, everybody.